Amara sat on her bed, her silk robe barely clinging to her shoulders. Mustapha stepped in, wiping his sweaty brow. "Madam, you called me?" She approached him slowly, her voice low. "Mustapha," she began, her eyes lingering on him, "your pencil is what I need. I love the way it stands, its length, its size. It's everything I've been craving." Mustapha froze, his towel slipping slightly as he stared at her in disbelief. "Madam," he stammered, shifting uncomfortably, "this is not right. You are my Oga's wife." "I'll increase your salary," Amara interrupted, stepping closer, her eyes locking onto his with a determination that sent his protests scattering. "I don't care about right or wrong anymore. I need this, I need you." Mustapha backed away, shaking his head. "But madam, what if?" "No buts, Mustapha," she cut him off, her tone firm but pleading. "Just say yes, and I'll make sure you'll never have to worry about anything again. Please subscribe to my channel." The grand ballroom shimmered with gold chandeliers and delicate floral arrangements, the scent of roses and lavender filling the air. Amara stood at the center of it all, her pristine white gown hugging her figure as she smiled at the camera flashes. This was her fairy tale, the one she'd dreamt of since she was a little girl. Tobi, her billionaire husband, stood beside her, beaming with pride as guests congratulated them. As she glanced at him, her heart swelled. Tobi was everything she'd prayed for, wealthy, handsome, and respectful. After years of heartbreaks with men who either cheated or broke her spirit, she had vowed never to settle for less. This time, she had chosen stability over passion. Love could grow, she thought. Their honeymoon in Paris was luxurious, filled with expensive gifts, breathtaking sights, and romantic dinners. But when the doors closed and it was just the two of them, Amara began to notice cracks in the perfect picture. It started on their wedding night. She had waited, nerves tingling with anticipation, for Tobi to claim her as his wife. But the moment was over as quickly as it began, leaving her feeling hollow. At first, she brushed it off, blaming exhaustion. But as the days turned into weeks, the pattern became clear. Tobi's small pencil left her yearning for something more. One night, unable to bear the silence anymore, she turned to him in bed. "Tobi," she began, her voice shaky but resolute. He responded, not even looking up from his phone. "Don't you think we need to talk about us?" He finally looked at her, his brows slightly furrowed. "What do you mean?" She swallowed hard, her fingers nervously twisting the edge of the blanket. "I mean, intimacy. Don't you think it's important?" He sighed, setting his phone on the nightstand. "Amara, intimacy isn't food. We're adults. We don't need to act like teenagers. There is more to marriage than that." His tone was dismissive, and the finality in his words stung like a slap. She watched as he turned his back to her, pulling the covers up to his shoulders. Amara sat in the darkness, her chest tightening with frustration and longing. It wasn't just about the physical act, it was the connection, the vulnerability, the affirmation of love that she craved. But Tobi didn't seem to understand, or worse, he didn't care. In the months that followed, she tried everything to reignite their passion. She cooked his favorite meals, wearing nothing but an apron as she served him, hoping to spark a reaction. He barely looked up from his phone. She wore the sexiest lingerie she could find, standing in front of the mirror as he walked into the room. His only comment was, "Don't you feel cold?" Once, she even slid her hands over his chest while he was working, pressing herself against him. "Not now, Amara," he said without even glancing at her. Each rejection chipped away at her confidence, leaving her feeling invisible and unwanted. The nights became lonelier, the silence between them more oppressive. She couldn't help but wonder if this was her punishment for rushing into marriage after a string of heartbreaks. But beneath her growing resentment lay a deep yearning for love, for connection, for someone who saw her as more than a wife, more than a responsibility. She wanted to feel desired, cherished, alive. And soon, her desperation would lead her to a temptation she never expected. Amara first noticed Mustapha, their gateman, one sunny afternoon. He was crouched beside one of Tobi's luxury SUVs, changing a tire with practiced ease. His shirt clung to his broad chest, soaked with sweat that glistened under the sunlight. Each muscle in his arms flexed as he worked, his biceps straining with effortless strength. Unlike Tobi, who barely acknowledged her presence, Mustapha always greeted her warmly. His deep, melodic voice carried a quiet charm that lingered long after he spoke. "Madam, how is everything?" he would ask, his shy smile revealing perfect white teeth. That day, Amara's gaze lingered a little too long. She noticed how the waistband of his trousers sat low on his hips, his athletic physique undeniable. A warmth stirred within her that she hadn't felt in months. Over time, she began to notice other things about him, the way he always seemed attentive, quick to respond to her requests, and how his presence filled the silent void Tobi left behind. One afternoon, the gas cylinder knob in the kitchen got stuck. Frustrated, Amara called out, "Mustapha?" expecting his usual prompt response. When there was no answer, she walked to his quarters at the far end of the compound, the sun beating down on her bare shoulders. "Mustapha?" she called again, knocking on his door. The faint sound of running water came from inside, and she realized he was in the shower. The door was slightly ajar, and curiosity whispered in her ear, urging her to take a peek. She hesitated, but her feet betrayed her resolve. She pushed the door open just enough to see him through the gap in the bathroom door. Her breath hitched. Mustapha stood under the stream of water, his skin glistening as droplets ran down his powerful shoulders and defined abs. But what truly captured her attention was his pencil. It was magnificent, long, thick, and perfectly sculpted, unlike anything she had ever imagined. A surge of heat rushed through her body, and she quickly backed away, her heart pounding. By the time she returned to the main house, her face was flushed, and her thoughts were a whirlwind of guilt and longing. The image of Mustapha haunted her in the days that followed. It invaded her dreams, her mind replaying that moment over and over again. Soon, she found excuses to interact with him. Her casual conversations with him became laced with flirtation, her fingers brushing his hand when she handed him something, her lingering gaze holding his for just a second too long. One evening, as Mustapha carried a bag of groceries into the kitchen, Amara decided she couldn't hold back any longer. The tension inside her had reached a breaking point. "Mustapha," she said, her voice soft yet firm. He turned to her, his brow furrowed in confusion. "Yes, madam?" She took a deep breath, stepping closer until there was barely any space between them. "Your pencil," she whispered, her eyes locking with his. "It's what I need." Mustapha froze, his eyes widening in shock. "Madam, I don't understand." "I've seen it," she interrupted, her cheeks flushing as she confessed. "That day in your bathroom, I saw it, and it's everything I've been missing." Her voice dropped lower, trembling with desire. "I need you, Mustapha." His gaze darted to the floor, his Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed hard. "Madam, this is wrong. You are married to Oga." She stepped even closer, her hand brushing lightly against his chest. "No one will know. Tobi doesn't care about me, but you. You can give me what I've been craving." "Madam?" "Please," she pleaded, cutting him off. Her fingers slid down his chest, lingering near his waist. "You are the only one who can make me feel alive again." Mustapha's resolve wavered as her touch ignited something deep within him. His breath quickened, his body betraying his hesitation. That night, when the house was quiet and the world outside seemed to stand still, Amara invited him into her room. What began with hesitant touches quickly turned into an explosion of passion. Mustapha was everything. Tobi wasn't intense, attentive, and eager to please. For the first time in years, Amara felt truly alive, her body trembling under the weight of satisfaction she had long forgotten. As their affair deepened, Amara found herself addicted to the fire Mustapha ignited in her. She knew it was wrong, but every stolen moment with him felt like reclaiming a piece of herself she had lost. The affair continued in secret, each encounter more intoxicating than the last. Amara knew she was treading on dangerous ground, yet she found herself unable to resist. Mustapha became her escape, his touch igniting a fire she hadn't known she was capable of feeling. Their stolen moments, whether in the secluded corners of the house or in the stillness of the night, were filled with raw passion and a growing sense of guilt. Tobi remained oblivious, his attention consumed by his business ventures and maintaining their social image. He was rarely home, and when he was, his conversations with Amara revolved around appearances dinners to attend, deals to finalize, and ensuring their marriage looked perfect from the outside. To Amara, it felt as though he cared more about his reputation than about her. Months later, Amara's world shifted when she began experiencing nausea and fatigue. A visit to the doctor confirmed what she already suspected. She was pregnant. The revelation sent a wave of mixed emotions through her. Was the child Tobi's or Mustapha's? The question haunted her, but she buried her doubts, determined to keep her secret hidden. When she told Tobi, his reaction was nothing short of elation. "Amara, this is wonderful news," he exclaimed, lifting her off her feet in a rare display of affection. He immediately began making plans, hiring the best decorators for the nursery and calling friends and family to share the announcement. Tobi's joy was infectious, and soon the house was abuzz with preparations for their child's arrival. He spared no expense, organizing a grand baby shower at a 5-star venue. Guests marveled at the opulence, praising Tobi for his generosity and Amara for her radiant glow. "Finally, I'll be a father," Tobi said proudly, raising a glass during his speech. "This child is a blessing and proof that hard work and faith pay off. To my beautiful wife Amara, you've given me more than I could ever ask for." Amara smiled, her hands resting on her growing belly, but her heart was heavy with guilt. The applause and congratulations felt hollow, each well-wisher's words like a knife twisting in her chest. She glanced across the room at Mustapha, who had been assigned to oversee security for the event. His eyes briefly met hers, and in that fleeting moment, she saw the same worry she felt. As the pregnancy progressed, Amara struggled to keep her secret buried. Tobi's excitement only made her guilt grow, but she reminded herself that she was doing what was necessary to maintain her marriage and her status. 2 years after the twins were born, the whispers in the neighborhood grew louder, spreading like wildfire. Visitors and neighbors couldn't help but comment on the stark difference between the boys. One twin had Tobi's sharp jawline, fairer complexion, and piercing eyes, a near replica of his father. The other, however, had a richer, darker skin tone, full lips, and a broad nose that unmistakably mirrored Mustapha's features. At first, Tobi waved off the comments, attributing the differences to genetics. "Twins don't always look alike," he would say dismissively, though the seed of doubt had been planted. But the murmurs persisted. During a casual gathering, one of the neighbors remarked, "It's funny how one of your boys looks just like your gateman, Mustapha, don't you think?" The words, spoken half in jest, struck a nerve. That night, Tobi confronted Amara. His face was set, his eyes dark with suspicion as he closed the bedroom door behind him. "Amara," he began, his voice deceptively calm, "why does one of our sons look so different from the other?" Her heart skipped a beat, but she quickly composed herself, forcing a smile. "They're twins, Tobi. Not all twins are identical." His gaze bore into hers, unrelenting. "This isn't about them being identical, Amara. People are talking. I am asking you, why does one of our sons look nothing like me?" She turned away, her hands trembling as she fiddled with the hem of her dress. "Tobi, you are overthinking this. Genetics can be unpredictable." He cut her off, his voice now low and dangerous. "I want a DNA test tomorrow." Her breath hitched, panic surging through her veins. "A DNA test? Tobi, is that even necessary? You are their father." His jaw tightened, his tone leaving no room for argument. "I said tomorrow." Amara nodded weakly, her mind racing with fear. The walls she had carefully built around her secret were beginning to crumble, and she knew there was no escape from the truth. To be continued. Please subscribe for part 2.